and you had a lot of freedom.
Okay. Okay. So how'd you build on that? Where did 3.5 weeks with Bob Hunt, an apartment, and Colonial Lincoln Mercury, where did that take you?
Well, shortly, I guess I worked there about 2.5 years. And during that 2.5-year period, there was a young gentleman they hired by the name of Hal Phillipson. He and I became friends. And I'll get back to the Hal Phillipson piece to tie that together for you. But Bob decided to leave and get his own dealership, which is the Chrysler store, and they tried to hire me to go with them. I wouldn't do it. It's true, again, I had Henry Ford's desk that was given to Bill Hankey, who was the owner, and I had all the gas I could use. I was driving a Lincoln Coupe. I was doing pretty good, and I was in Buckhead. Why would you want to leave if you're single? You're in Buckhead with cash in your pocket and a Lincoln, right?
There you go.
I surely didn't want to leave that, but he talked me into leaving. I went to where he made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and that lasted 4.5 weeks. And after 4.5 weeks, Chrysler came in and told Bob that he needed to put up his money in the Chrysler store, or they were replacing him. And he said, "Well, we're not making any money here, so I'm not putting my money in." So Chrysler took it back over. Now, this Hal Phillipson that I mentioned had gone to work with him right away. So the guy's name from MID, that's what Chrysler called their dealer development, was Joe Payne. And Joe Payne came in, interviewed all of us, and after a 24-hour period, he fired me. And I said, "Why firing me?" Because he said, "Well, everybody else tells me you're the most likely to get a job soon." So they protected themselves, including my little buddy Hal. And so I was out of work for about a month, 5 weeks, and I went to work for Frank Jackson Lincoln Mercury, which is still in town. It's in Sandy Springs. Worked for him for a year. At the end of that year, I was hired by Jim Hickman, and I went to work for Hickman Nissan for 8.5 years. And those 8.5 years, I went through. Jim Hickman was a IndyCar driver also, and he wrecked his car in the Milwaukee 500. He was Rookie of the Year at Indianapolis. He finished 7th, and this was 82 or 83, I think. And then in the Milwaukee 500, he ran it into the wall and he died. So his wife came over and took over the store. So I went through 2 husbands and 7 general managers, and again we had a pretty nice situation. We had 2 Z cars. My wife and I both had Z cars. We had our gasoline. In a great Nissan store, high volume. We were selling a lot of cars. And the 7th general manager didn't like me very well, so the cars started coming away, the gasoline started going away, and I knew that it was a matter of time. So then I sort of got on the horn looking for another job, and I was hired by Pat Dominicone, who was the owner of Classic Cadillac in Perimeter Mall. So I worked for Pat for 3 years, learned a lot of things not to do, learned a lot of things to do. But I will say this for Pat, he was a man of his word. Anything he promised me, he delivered, unequivocally, man of his word. But that came to an end, and going back to Hal Phillipson, he had followed me through a couple of these stores. He worked with us at Hickman, he worked for us at Classic Cadillac, and his father-in-law, a guy named Harry Maziar, M-A-Z-I-A-R, was at the time president of Zepp Chemical. Zepp was a division of National Service Industries. He and Irwin Zabin was the founding chief executive officer of National Service Industries, and we're big buddies. And Harry was groomed to take over for Irwin when Irwin stepped down, and had plenty of money. So he bought Hal a Hyundai store in Riverdale, and they asked me to come work for him at Riverdale, and they told me the next store that came open I could run, and the next store that came open was Noonan, Georgia. The old Bert Smith store, if you remember that. Maybe you don't. So we came to Noonan in '92. I bought into the store about '94. In '96, '97, we got Hyundai. In 2002, we bought Mike Patton out. In 2007, we built new facilities for General Motors. By the way, that facility was the first, that was the new GM image. We were the first in the Southeast to do it for both locations, both Pontiac, Buick, GMC, and for Chevrolet. In fact, now there's only 700 old habit. There's only 700 Buick GMC dealers that have that facility, and there's only about 1,200 Chevrolet dealers that have the facility. So they're still working on it. And during that time, we lost Oldsmobile, we lost Pontiac, we lost Chrysler, we lost Jeep. So we really had to invent ourselves every so often. Too much detail?
That's great. That's great. I mean, you are a walking history book of the changes in the auto industry. I mean, that's a leading economic indicator in this country. When we have people in here from other countries, the first thing they talk about is you Americans all have cars and you drive long distances. So, Steve, talk about the changes in the industry. I mean, you've seen you've seen new models come in. You've seen new companies challenge old established companies. What's the change been like? How do you navigate through all of that?
Well, maybe, and I've gone through this sort of quick for everybody, and maybe you haven't made a judgment yet, but obviously, I'm not a planner. I mean, I didn't decide to go to school and become a teacher. I went there because, well, it's either that. Plus, there were 7 girls to every 1 guy at Edinburgh. I forgot to mention that. But I'm not necessarily a planner. I had no desire to become enter the halls of academia. That's sort of what happened to me. I had no ambition to become a car salesperson. That sort of happened to me. I had no desire to move into running a car dealership. That sort of evolved and happened to me. So you sort of, as I look back, having 2020, you reinvent yourself in the car business about every 7 years or so. It evolves, things change. In 1992, we were a GM store, and we sold a lot of Pontiacs. We grew the Pontiac business to be the largest Pontiac store in the state of Georgia, and then it went away. What do you do? Reinvent yourself. And I guess you're going to ask me how. GMC was a huge business. We couldn't get any. We had to learn to make relationships. We learned how to internet and work with the factory, and then we started getting some GMC trucks. That's when Yukon was the hottest thing on the planet, and scarce as hen's teeth. We ended up getting them. We grew from '92 to 2003. After 1 year after buying Patton out, we were selling 1,200 GM products a year in Noonan. Wow. That is a lot. Now, when you think about it, today we sell about the same number of GM products.
What was the first year that you said 1,200?
That was 2002, 2003. 2003 was the first full year we were in business with Patton. So it's grown quite a bit. Hyundai, when we took it over in late 90s, 96, 97, started out selling 5 or 6 a month. We grew it to the 40s. We were pretty excited with the 40s. Then they put a deal